What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me today, joining us, Jon Impemba, managing editor of FantasyAlarm.com. Listen, we get it. There's no sports right now. There's very limited stuff happening. We can sit here and we can look towards hopeful potential dates. PGA's talking about some stuff. MLB still seems to be on a 4th of July plan / schedule. With their stuff, and we're just kind of hoping for the best. So what Jon and I are going to do today, we're going to talk with a number of different topics, all sports related, all with the hope and promise that we're going to get sports back soon. Jon, how you doing, man? I mean, listen, I know you like me, eat, breathe, live all things sports.
It's tough.
Yeah. How are you doing? How are you holding up, Jon? How are you doing?
Things could obviously be better. We should be right now in the middle of like NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs. The MLB should be going on. We're already preparing for the NFL draft. Thankfully, we still sort of have that to look forward to. But, I mean, there should have been so much going on right now. Every night should have been full of, sports entertainment, and we got nothing, unfortunately, to really pay attention to. It's a drag. It really is. It kind of just wait for things to kind of go back to normal.
Well, let's start with stuff that I guess we're kind of hoping for and move from there. Obviously, the NFL draft's still going to go on schedule. We're still looking at April 23rd. Everybody's going to be doing it remotely. Mm-hmm. There are a number of delicious prop bets posted right now on that NFL draft. And I mean, Jon, you're a gambling man by nature, I know, and you're doing the. We'll talk some futures for NFL that you actually have that whole series over at WagerAlarm.com right now. But have you seen some of the props that we're looking at for the draft itself?
I have seen a few of them. Obviously, some obvious picks. Who's going to go first, offensive or defensive player? We're all pretty sure it's going to be the quarterback there, Joe Burrow, or Tua is going to go. So it's going to be like an offensive player. Right now, you can pick which each team, whether or not they're going to pick an offensive or defensive player first. There's a lot of different odds that you can kind of go through. What school is going to have the most first-round picks. Like, there's a ton of props that you can do with the NFL draft.
Those are so boring. You're naming the most boring prop bets. Wouldn't you prefer to gamble on the fact that one of the draftees is going to have an internet issue in the middle of the draft, or how many cats? The over/under on cats shown in the live stream is, I think it's right now it's at 0.5 for the first round.
Yeah,
and it's 9.5 for dogs. I mean, a little over/under action on that aspect there. I mean, we can always talk about who's going to go first.
True. We're getting into sort of the crazy Super Bowl props that usually, how many times are they going to pan to so-and-so in the, in the box? What color the Gatorade's going to be and whatnot. So, they're obviously getting creative, and I think they sort of have to just give somebody some things to bet on, right?
You tell me. Everybody needs something to bet on. I mean, listen, I'm looking at stuff right now. I'm actually in a Twitter conversation with Todd Zola, and we're prepping for a potential eat-off. Because neither one of us really wants to deal with dieting, and eating to kill the time is something interesting. I figured, I said to him, I'm like, comfort food / junk food, eat off. I mean, there are a million things that people can bet on there.
Yeah, I kind of wish I could be a part of that. I'm currently in the middle of a self-imposed diet that was imposed upon me.
Self-imposed, but imposed on you?
Yeah. My girlfriend, very active. She does kickboxing. She does all these things. Her kickboxing gym is doing a 21-day challenge where, you eat right, you weigh yourself before, weigh yourself afterwards. So since I'm the cook of the house, I have now also have to partake in this 21-day challenge with her. So I'm hungry, Howard. Haven't been able to snack as much as I usually do. Sitting around the house all day. You're looking at what we have in the house, and nothing but celery sticks and peanut butter. So
I'm still, you know what? I'm okay with celery sticks and peanut butter. If that's gonna claim to make me healthy, that's fine. Of course, that jar is single serving in my mind, so I'll probably be able to just wolf down the entire thing. But I mean, listen, man, I get it. It's brutal. I've been nursing the broken foot thing. Like, right. I'm out of the boot right now, but
it's still sore, right?
Some of a very, very significant
You're
limp.
basically AJ Green right now, right? Like
I,
it's, you know, yeah.
nail on the head right now.
Yeah.
If I'm going to ever get myself an AJ Green jersey, it is definitely for that. All right, let's talk some of the NFL futures. Though. I mean, listen, obviously the draft is going to be filled with a whole mess of stuff, and at fantasyalarm.com, we're going to have ridiculously crazy good draft coverage from a live stream to multi analyst discussions, reactionary videos, everything that you could possibly have, including a live chat as it's all going on. So we're going to be covering all of that. You and I have talked. I believe we talked. Yeah, we talked on a 5-on-5 episode where we were talking about your top 5 favorite future bets for the divisions. But let's jump into the AFC Championship, which actually you just posted on Fantasy Alarm on Tuesday morning. And obviously, like that's the thing for me. The AFC super easy because you've got the Chiefs and the Ravens, and those definitely are the odds-on favorites. And even when you start looking through some of the long shots, plus 1,200, plus 2,500, there's really not a whole lot to love, is there?
The AFC is less sexy, we'll say, than the NFC. That's for sure. There you have the two teams right at the top: Kansas City, Baltimore. KC plus 350, Baltimore plus 400. I mean, great return on your bet there. If you pick one of those two and they get it right, bet $100, get 350 back. Bet $100, get 400 back. But where's the fun in picking the favorites, right? You're really looking for maybe some of those long shots to go ahead and win some real money. So the two that I kind of picked of the group that I found maybe possibly appealing there was Buffalo at plus 1,200. I think they're going to win the AFC East. The Patriots still have better odds than them. They're considered the third best team, or Vegas gives them the third best probability of winning. I think Buffalo's going to overtake them this year. So if you want to go ahead and think me, Buffalo takes that next step forward. They have a strong defense. They built up their offense a little bit more by getting Stephon Diggs. If they can just get like any sort of production out of Josh Allen throwing the football a little bit better. You can't have, a 58% completion percentage. Like if you can get that to 62, 63%, then maybe, that offense runs a little bit better. And they have an opportunity to kind of leap over those other teams. For me, Baltimore is the biggest regression candidate. What's Lamar Jackson going to be able to do? And, now the teams not so much have a book on him, but, what are the odds of him being able to repeat the season that he had last year? I remember you pounding the drum a lot on like Patrick Mahomes not being able to repeat what he did 2 years ago, had a step back, and we saw, Kansas City still won the Super Bowl, but the season and the Chiefs really struggled at times. What if Lamar isn't able to put up the same numbers that he did last year? Does Baltimore then step back a little bit and kind of open it up? So for me, I think Buffalo at plus 1,200 is appealing. And then I was stunned to see Tennessee at plus 1,600. They were in the AFC Championship game last year. Their defense is still strong. They added Vic Beasley to help the pass rush. They're pretty much returning all of their offensive players minus Deion Lewis. If you're a Ryan Tannehill truther, which I am, I know you liked him last year. We're talking about a team that was in the AFC Championship game last year, that had the lead in the AFC Championship game last year, and then Patrick Mahomes just turned it to another level. They couldn't keep pace, and they fell out. But you're getting plus 1,600 odds on Tennessee. I actually really do like that bet.
Yeah, I like that bet too. And I actually like Tennessee a little bit more than I like Buffalo. As much as I like Buffalo, yeah, we got to worry about what's going to happen with Josh Allen. But, they don't have the ground game that really, obviously Kansas City's going to have to, really step up their run defense a little bit more. That was one of the things that obviously was a big, knock on them. But, Buffalo just doesn't have, Singletary, they could be looking at somebody in the draft right now.
I think Singletary's a great complimentary back, though. He can catch the ball. He ran the ball well when given the opportunity. He was just, is Frank Gore still there? I don't know where Frank Gore is these days. But Buffalo seemed intent on letting him sort of run the football in the early downs. They could go ahead and get a running back again in the draft, or they could see what Singletary has, as an every down back for them. But I don't think their running game is as bad as maybe, it was portrayed to be last year.
I'm not saying it was bad. Here's the thing, and here's the difference. we're talking about it in a fantasy sense as well as a reality sense, and we're wagering in a reality sense, and that's kind of where we have to, lean and pivot. I think Devin Singletary is a great guy, and I'll draft him this year. I'm hoping that we see an uptick in production, but it's the overall product, and are we going to get that? I have I'll bank more on Ryan Tannehill and his experience than I will on a guy like Josh Allen to take that necessary next step. So yeah, I mean, listen, that's kind of one of the things that I've definitely had to deal with as far as when you're betting futures like that, and I'll sit there and wins totals. Craig Mish and I for MLB we're going over wins totals back in the day, February.
Seems like forever, right?
It really does. It really does. Has there been a longer month than the month of March was in 2020? I don't think so.
No,
but
there hasn't been.
There's a smart wager and then there's a long shot wager, and the question is how much are you going to throw down on a long shot wager in order to make that happen? Like I'm more confident in a team like Tennessee that I'll throw $100 on them at plus 1,600 than to think that I might be maybe throwing some money away a little bit in comparison to throwing that onto Buffalo. I'm not betting 5 different teams, 6 different teams. I'm looking at the AFC and I'm thinking, well, I mean, if I'm going to throw $100, I might as well just do it on one of the favorites and just kind of, hedge.
Bet 100 on Kansas City, throw 50 on Tennessee, and see if it comes out again. Something like that.
Yeah, something to that effect. Anybody in the AFC kind of look at and you say could be a dark horse? I mean, I don't think anybody thought that Tennessee was going to go as far as they did.
Right.
You've got Pittsburgh with Big Ben coming back. Let me just look at some odds that are right in front of me right now.
There's a big group at 1,600 that I'm seeing, like Cleveland, the Raiders, Chargers, Steelers, and Titans are all plus 1,600 there. I don't know. I mean, I know you and I kind of had a little back and forth about the Steelers before and Big Ben coming back. There's just something to me about him coming off that major injury and whether or not they're going to be able to, make that run to the top. I would really have to see him, look strong in maybe preseason games or something like that to let me know that he's good to go. But you always wonder about arm strength after an elbow surgery like that, and then his age as well. Plus, they are competing, against Baltimore in their own division, and they're probably not going to win that division. So I don't know. I'm probably not as big on Pittsburgh as a long shot. Maybe Houston gets it together. People are down on David Johnson. Mm-hmm. I like David Johnson. I think there's a potential for him to bounce back this year. I mean, Carlos Hyde was the 1,000-yard runner last year, for Houston, and most people ruled him out, given all the, the times he was traded. And they did just get Brandon Cooks, and if Cooks can stay healthy, he is going to at least, be a competent receiver for that offense. They still have Deshaun Watson. If Bill O'Brien can manage to get out of his own way, that defense is somewhat serviceable as well. In a division that, I do like Tennessee, but I feel like that division is really a toss-up, between the Colts, Texans, and Titans, and who's going to come out of there. So, maybe Houston at plus 2,000 is a long shot bet that you can make.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by that. How the Jets are only plus 4,000 is beyond me. That I just don't understand. When Cincinnati,
they're better than Cincy, maybe.
Are they better than Jacksonville?
I think so. I think they can be better than Jacksonville. I do. I think they can be better than Jacksonville. Cincinnati is going to be interesting because if the whatever quarterback they do end up taking is able to elevate that offense at all. I mean, Mixon was very good last year at the end of the year. He had no offensive line. He had no help around him. Boyd was great. If AJ Green can get on the football field, and give some offensive upside there, I mean, Cincinnati could compete. It'd be an interesting thing to see them. They're not anything worth putting a bet down on, but I think they could be better than the Jets. Could be better than the Broncos, maybe.
Broncos kind of intrigue me also. Like you look at Drew Lock and you wonder what kind of a step forward he could actually take. And does the addition of Melvin Gordon? A lot of people are looking at them at the draft as possible targets of CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy.
They definitely could use a receiver to help out Sutton. I like that idea a lot for them. Noah Fant, obviously, if he can take the next step up, that'd be great. The running back thing is odd to me because, like, what's wrong with Phillip Lindsay? Like, why all of a sudden are they going to crowd the backfield with Melvin Gordon? Gordon wasn't really able to get his job back from why am I blanking on his name there now?
Austin Eckler.
So, like, I don't know. I understand it was a short-term, money deal, but, like, how much does Melvin Gordon have left? What's he going to actually add to the team? Are you going to be taking away snaps from probably maybe a better player at this point than Phillip Lindsay? So, to me, that's an interesting ad by them.
I kind of feel like Lindsey's going to end up in that third down complimentary role. I think he's like could end up being like a poor man's Austin Eckler with Gordon taking the lead role. I think Denver's just kind of looking at Royce Freeman like, nah, brah. there's no reason.
It's weird that they would like take Lindsey and put him in a third down role when he's back-to-back 1,000-yard years, averaging over 4.5 yards per carry, on the ground. Like, he's been an effective runner, and like if you look at his receiving yards, like he didn't even have 200 yards receiving last year, so it's not like he was very much involved in the passing game. Melvin Gordon could be better suited to be a pass catching running back, probably. As involved as he's been, with San Diego or Los Angeles, whatever you want to call them. Not that they would put him in that third down role, but to me, it doesn't seem like Lindsey's really done much to all of a sudden be second fiddle there to Gordon.
Yeah, well, teams do a ton of things that just kind of leave me scratching my head.
It's true.
In a big way. Now, you haven't posted the NFC conference. You got a little preview. You got a lean here and there.
Yeah, the NFC is obviously interesting because, both teams at the top, there's no secret. You can go look at the odds if you want. San Francisco and New Orleans are plus 500. Obviously, San Francisco won that last year, went to the Super Bowl, lost the Super Bowl. I think that's really great odds on either of them. To me, I think San Francisco is taking a step back this year. If you want to bet a favorite, the Saints certainly at plus 500 are a play. But, again, I like Seattle as an upset for the division. I like Seattle at plus 1,100 to maybe win the conference. I just think, it's hard to bet against Russell Wilson sometimes and what he is capable of doing with not much around him. Usually he doesn't have an offensive line. He's ranked for his life. But he makes something happen on that offensive side. The defense can hold it together long enough. I think there's a chance that they can, again, snake through that conference.
Yeah. Very interesting. And listen, they added some weaponry there. They could end up, if they're not confident in Rashad Penny and his recovery, even though they've said that they're very happy with the road to recovery for Rashad Penny from his knee injury and Chris Carson's problems last year. I could still see them going running back, especially when you see so many running backs who in the draft right now who could potentially fall to like the second, third, and possibly even the fourth round. Like, I'm not saying it's a deep class,
right?
But I think you can pull somebody from there who could at least kind of, jumpstart the rest of these guys.
Especially when this is such a deep draft at wide receiver. I think a lot of teams could be looking at that side of the ball in this upcoming draft, and maybe that allows more of the running back depth to fall back. To Seattle, personally, I would like them to draft, an impact defensive player. Clowney's still floating out there. He didn't do too much for them when they acquired him last year, but, if they could really get someone to, shore up that secondary, I think that'd be a great benefit to them.
All right. Okay, so NFL Futures, look for Jon Impemba's article on the NFC Conference Championship. That'll be coming out in the next day or so over at Fantasy Alarm. And WagerAlarm.com, and then just make sure you go through all the NFL content over at WagerAlarm.com, and you can see division by division how John breaks it down, his favorite, his long shot, who the chalk might be. It's definitely a great series, especially if you're looking to lay some action down early or at least right around the NFL draft, because a lot of these lines are going to drop or raise, depending on what their teams do. All right, so we've got fingers crossed for MLB to start up, and now there's more talk. There was talk about what if everybody was just isolated in Arizona. Then all of a sudden it was like, well, what if we go Cactus League and Grapefruit League and we isolate in Florida as well? Now it's all gone back to the possibility of just Arizona, as that thing. They could still jumble up everything into Cactus League and Grapefruit League. But what do you think about the plans here? It still seems like you need about 3 weeks of spring training for these guys. I was talking to talked to Austin Meadows and Lance McCullers on the Fantasy Alarm show on SiriusXM, and both of them are in favor of that, needing those 3-4 weeks. Players would prefer 4 weeks. Ownership wants 2 to 3 weeks. They can meet in the middle somewhere there. What do you think about the upcoming possibilities?
Yeah, I mean, I am really for whatever gets a game back as soon as possible in the safest way possible, right? But I mean,
I'm so desperate. Just bring it back.
But I mean, I think obviously it's hard to put myself in the shoes of a player where they're saying, okay, we're going to isolate you from your family, and you're really going to go from the ballpark to the apartment complex that we're keeping everybody in and back and forth. But I felt like, whether they kept it in Florida and Arizona or one way or the other, it was probably the best opportunity for them to get these games in because there are so many spring training fields available. There's so many team facilities that are available for everybody to get, their workouts in and treatments and whatnot. So, I was at least a big fan of the initial idea when it first came out. I liked the idea of them going with Grapefruit and Cactus League divisions. To me, that's kind of, unique way to have this season play out, and which is already in a regular season to begin with. Like, you get the opportunity to see different teams and play against different teams. And while us as fans can't really go out and watch them, I think it just kind of brings a kind of a uniqueness to what the season's already going to be. And realignment, in my opinion, isn't always the worst idea in sports because, I mean, eventually, at least in my opinion, it gets boring seeing the same teams like over and over and over again. And I know they do their best to shift it around interleague play and give exposure. But, I when I first saw the initial idea and breaking up into those conferences and league divisions, I thought it was something interesting to at least get things going.
So are you against the imbalanced schedule that MLB uses where you end up playing everybody in your division 17 times?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's, being in, I mean, every team has their bad teams, but like, watching, 9 innings of Red Sox Orioles for 17 times is like awful. Baltimore's not a good team. These baseball games are too long to begin with, in my opinion, half the time. So yeah, I kind of get bored with it sometimes, the benefit of fantasy and DFS, at least, you're invested in the league as a whole across all sports. You're paying attention to maybe a little bit more. You're not stuck into, just these, hometown games. But, still, when I want to go watch a game, that's usually what you end up getting is, an AL East opponent. And to me, eventually that kind of gets worn out. The rivalries aren't always the same. Teams are going through their turnovers and whatnot. So, if I got to see, the Red Sox play the Twins 12 times instead or whatever, maybe that'd be more appealing, just to break it up a little bit.
I mean, listen, I don't mind the shake-up and going to Grapefruit and Cactus League. I think they need to do something to kind of not so much pique everybody's interest, but to just kind of be a little bit more creative with the way things are going on. Because, I was talking to Craig Mish last night or the other night as far as, what do you do for stats? Like, you work on fanjections over at Fantasy Alarm, and and I know that you're neck deep in basketball, but let's talk about baseball for this year. I mean, how do you?
It's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, do you when you're looking at let's talk about this projections for 2021? Forget about scaling down your projections for 2020 based on the number of games played or potential games played if and when it starts. But you look at 2021, and there's always so much weight that's put on the previous season's numbers. So how do you look at 2021 and set out projections? I mean, how much do you reduce the weight of the season before? Because this whole 2020 year has just been a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a ton of factors involved. I mean, one, like how many games are we going to get for sample size? I've heard, they're targeting like the 100-game schedule potentially, to get everything going back. Then you're obviously cutting off, the 62 games before that. What if they are playing in Florida and Arizona for the season? Ballparks are different there. Divisions obviously are different. The travel, there's going to be a lot. This would almost be a wash year in terms of statistics because you don't know what's going to happen. You're going to have, everybody out in the Cactus League playing in the humidity and the heat and everything out there that's going on in Arizona. And so we see the offensive numbers, tend to skyrocket out there. How is that going to impact everybody that's there? So, It's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously everything's going to have to be, tapered down a little bit. But for me, and we talk a lot about this when we drafted earlier. Some of us who were in some of the industry leagues, and we did slow drafts, and we expected the season to be gone by now. And players that were injured, or maybe players that were going to be on innings limits and pitch counts, and like, how's that all being affected now? And are they going to go ahead and still be limited when the season comes back? Are they going to play through because they've had all this extra time to rehab and get it going? Is any of this going to carry over into next year? If someone had arm surgery and they wanted them to get to 130 innings this year, but now they're only going to get to 80, like, is that going to impact them going into next year and being limited? So there's a lot of unknowns as to how teams are going to handle a lot of these things, and projections. Yeah, it's just a real big crapshoot right now. We definitely talk a lot about it.
Yeah, it's going to be a huge crapshoot. I mean, it's funny. Conversation with McCullers. I mean, I had said the question that I had posed to him was basically pertaining to how many innings he was expecting to throw this year, coming off of Tommy John and the recovery there. He actually said that he made a joke about the person who drafted him early on made the right move, because he was actually supposed to start the season on time, right, get about 160, 170 innings in. So now we're looking at him rising up the draft boards because we're thinking of, maybe it's only 140 innings that we're going to end up seeing. And guys like that who are injured, I mean, it's nuts. Dude, I drafted the FSGA team in January.
Yeah.
January. I mean, it's disgusting. I can't remember even who I was taking or who I took in a number of places. I know I took Mike Trout as the number one guy, but I mean, it's been so long ago, I haven't even revisited that team.
Yeah, I mean, I've been invited to do certain, different drafts, and getting involved, obviously, in the mock draft army. And getting involved with some of the best ball drafts. And I'm like, I don't really want to invest a lot of time in this right now, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't want to draft the team and then maybe a guy decides, to go have surgery on something that's been nagging him, because now at this point, what is the point? Or like, maybe a guy gets hurt, walking around his house in isolation. I mean, sure, that can always happen, but like, I don't know. Like, I would feel more comfortable if the season was going on and I kind of knew what these guys were doing. So I've kind of been avoiding a lot of the, opportunities to join these leagues, because to me, I don't have enough information on what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, I laugh. I no offense, I love everybody at the NFBC. I love everybody over at RT Sports, but I'm not putting in a dime into any baseball league right now, into any draft, just best ball, regular, seasonal, whatever the case may be, because I mean, for all intents and purposes, we might not even have an MLB season this year. I'll do best ball for football, right, and I'll throw in $10 on a team there or $20 on a team there, but I am not touching, not even remotely touching.
So how do you? So I was thinking about this the other day, just having a conversation with a friend of mine who's sort of in a similar situation where it's like the NFL season's coming up. We're all sort of just in this holding pattern with the MLB. Like, how much focus are you splitting your time with preparing for the NFL right now versus like, continuing to do the research or content? What's your split here between baseball and football right now?
Right now, I would probably say my split is more in the realm of like 80% football and 20% baseball. I've done my research. I've prepped for a number of drafts. I did the labor auction. I did the tout auction. And I had my ideas as far as, what we're going to do for baseball this year. We're just going to wait and see, because, I mean, the players aren't changing.
Right.
And there are certain obvious things like, you're talking about a player who was hurt, who we're now going to see a full season from, or at least we should see a full season from them. They obviously get bumped up. It's more of a common sense situation for me, where I think that, if you're going to do drafts for MLB, if you've done drafts before, then you can probably go less hard on starting pitching early on, because everybody's going to probably be throwing very similar innings than what it was before. So for me now, it's football. It's all speculation. It's all looking at, who's going to go where in the draft, what these offenses are going to look like. I'm doing, I've already started like mad research on all the coaches who have moved around so that we can take a look at what their system could look like. I mean,
true.
Let's take Carolina, for example, with Matt Rule now running the show there instead of Riverboat Ron. And, bringing in, losing Funchess, but getting Robbie Anderson, losing Cam Newton, getting Teddy Bridgewater, right? What scheme are they going to run over there? So I think it's more important right now to start studying football. And there's obviously the potential of a full football season as opposed to a truncated season that we could see in MLB.
Right, because we had, 5 coaching changes in the NFL, right? We had is it 5 or is you trying to think of the net?
I don't know it offhand, but yeah, I feel like it's 5.
Dallas, Carolina, Washington, the Giants. There's 4. I feel like there was maybe one more, but maybe 4 or 5, right? So yeah, there's definitely gonna be a lot of changes going on in some systems. So obviously we'll have that in the draft guide, I assume. You're a big coach's system article, so be ready for that whenever we get the content going. So
I am not doing. Listen, I am saying it right now. There will not be a lick of draft content coming out, draft guide material coming out until after the NFL draft.
That's
like nothing. Everybody's getting great free content right now. We got positional previews. We've got rookie coverage from Dan Servadidio. To me, no decisions get made, and there's no reason to put out draft guide content before the NFL draft. There's really not even draft guide content to put out in May. You don't want to have to deal with that. We can talk basic strategy, but May and June should be the time that you're doing all of your research, not drafting.
It feels like this holding pattern, sort of making people either eager or more willing to sort of just jump to the next season because there's like nothing more you can do, like we said, for baseball. It's only looking towards the future, and right now it's like how much football information can I get up on me. So it makes a lot of sense.
I think what we're also looking at, and I think the reason why some people say you should get your draft guide content, pump it out now, is because once sports starts back up, it's going to be a melee. I mean, it is
9 things going on.
Could you imagine? I mean, the MLB season starting up, PGA Tour's back up, NBA playoffs going on, Stanley Cup playoffs are going on. You're doing NFL research, you're doing NASCAR stuff. I mean, every sport is going to be
going.
Going all at the same time. So it's going to be, some people are going to probably feel a little overwhelmed, especially if you're covering multiple sports.
And
I'm going to ride you like a pony this year, buddy.
We have to worry about esports now.
And that brings us to the wonderful segue of esports coverage. If you read the Counter-Strike article from Sean Mitchell over at fantasyalarm.com, that thing to me reads like stereo instructions in Japanese.
I had no idea.
No clue. I mean, have you played Counter-Strike?
I haven't played Counter-Strike. I've played Call of Duty a little bit, but I am very much out there in saying that I am by far the worst first-person shooter player. Like there's just something about like the hand-eye coordination with the toggle stick and the zoom. Like I just can't figure it out. I die very often. I'm usually a negative when it comes to those games. So no, I haven't, but I've like watched, some of the, esports contests on Twitch, because it gave me something to watch, so, I've been drawn to it a little bit because I know League of Legends has been out there and Rocket League and now Counter-Strike with Sean put out for today. So, I mean, it's interesting to watch these guys. I mean, they're actually pretty talented, in terms of, being able to be so good at these games. So, but yeah, I edited the article today that Sean put out, or did my best to edit it because to me, right, there's words in here that I've never heard of. I was like capitalizing some of the player names, and he was like, no, like that's how they actually spell like their name. I was like, oh, okay, so they just like use random letters and ups and downs. So, yeah, it's interesting to see, but apparently it went well for him. So, I mean, Sean's been doing really well. I've been kind of talking to him a little bit about it, kind of encouraging him to take up the esports mantle here at Fantasy Line. Well, he's been winning some money with contests. The other day, he and like 300 people chopped first place in something. So like, yeah, I mean, it's a good ad. And my question really, and see what your take is now that this is sort of getting like the most exposure it's ever had, right? Like, there's never been more of a time where esports is the thing to talk about. Do you think this is something that could be here to stay, or do you think this is something that is just going to fade away once regular sports come back?
Oh, I think it's here to stay. I mean, I really do. I feel like if people are winning money right now on games like League of Legends, where they really don't know a whole lot. Like, how many times have you seen that tweet? I don't really know what I'm doing here, but and it's just.
I saw people putting LOL, and I thought they were doing the laugh out loud. I was like, why is everybody laughing out loud at DK assist?
Right, green is green. If there's a bunch of green on your screenshot, I feel like it's a pretty good move.
Yeah.
So and here's the funny thing, and here's what we're doing, because we actually, Sean's going to be doing the Counter-Strike work, but I actually have just been in contact with some esports people regarding our coverage over at Fantasy Alarm, and you've got right now what's going on right now in League of Legends and Rocket League is that you're dealing with the spring session, you're dealing with the playoffs right now. That's what's going on in the last 2 weeks of April. The summer session begins in May, and the summer session for League of Legends and Rocket League, you got North America, but you've also got European leagues as well. For League of Legends, I think there are 3 different leagues that they were telling me about that they were talking about getting. Oh no, I'm confusing what Sean told me.
Yeah,
again.
Sean's got 3 leagues. There's different seasons. Yeah,
it's like a whole different animal for us, but which is why it was more important for me, instead of for us to go rushing out and posting, esports content and running the risk of not being successful or not being, at least a respectable source
right.
For your DFS work. Then, I wanted to make sure that I had the right people in place. You need people who speak the language,
sure.
First and foremost. I mean, how many times have when DFS was on the uprise, and you had people who were, just misusing different jargon that you have in the DFS world. What's chalk? What are you fading? This and that. And you could see, if you were an experienced player, you could see right through somebody immediately. If they don't speak the language, then you can't trust them. And I felt very firmly about that with regard to esports, which is why the guys who I've gone out, who are now, they'll probably do a couple of League of Legends and Rocket League previews for the playoffs here in April, but they're gearing up for the summer session, which starts early May. Mm-hmm. And these guys are getting ready to crush it, absolutely crush it. So I'm very excited about this. I prefer Rocket League over any of them, only because Rocket League seems like the only one that's really a sport.
Yeah, it's like soccer or something, right? Like
with cars.
With cars, yeah.
With giant flying cars.
Yeah. Okay. I've seen some highlights of it. I wanted to make sure I had that correct. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. I was actually talking to Sean about it when he put out the article, because he's saying, "Oh, well, they're in their playoffs now." And I'm like, so how does like e-gaming seasons work? Because like in the PGA, like they have their end of the season, but like then they have like the fall swing where they play out in like China. It's like the season's never really ending. It's just like so I was wondering if like, is there really an off season for e-gaming, or do they just kind of take a couple weeks off and just roll it into like a new tournament, a new contest, a new gameplay style? So I
don't even think they take a couple of weeks off. I mean, from what I'm told, as far as League of Legends and Rocket League go, is that the playoffs finish up here in April. May immediately starts the summer session, because the sessions run about 4 months long. They do about 3 months of games, and then they do a month with playoffs. So, that's why, again, I think it's obviously something that's here to stay, and I think it's growing in popularity. And I'm super stoked about what we've got going on at Fantasy Alarm with these, with the new additions. It's not, we're not charging anybody for this information. You're going to see it. You're going to get it all for free. So if you guys want to jump into some esports, definitely stay tuned to Fantasy Alarm over the next 2 weeks, and you get, and then into May to get you ready for that summer session. Last thing I want to talk to you about here, John, this one kind of bugs me. I mean, and it bugged me before with WrestleMania, and I get it. If you've got the closed doors and no fans and everybody within, the wrestlers who are competing and the referees who are in the ring, they're all been, supposedly tested and whatever. The fact that the governor of Florida has now deemed WWE as essential.
Yeah.
Really kind of bugs me, because I'll tell you why. I mean, listen, I was all against the XFL. If this doesn't prove my point, then I don't know what does, because I'll throw the conspiracy theory out at you.
Yeah.
And you tell me. XFL shuts down the season like everybody else does in sports in March. WWE checks the ratings numbers and the WWE network subscriptions and everything like that to catch WrestleMania, which is going to be done live over 2 days, but not with any fans. Mm-hmm. And so McMahon, all of a sudden, he sees that everybody loved it, and the reviews for WrestleMania,
the highest viewed WrestleMania of all time.
So what? Yeah, like everybody else is like, what else are you gonna do? So then, boom! Now all of a sudden, the XFL files for bankruptcy. It's not coming back, and lo and behold, the governor of Florida and the mayor of I guess it's Orange City or Orange County, wherever
Orlando, the Florida performance,
wherever they're doing it, are suddenly saying that this is an essential thing. I mean, I'd like to see campaign contributions from Vince McMahon and the WWE over to the campaigns for the governor of Florida and the mayor of that county, because I think it's garbage, dude, and I think it's a very strong manipulation of the system, and it sets a horrible precedent. You know what? You want to go buy Fight Island like Dana White and become your own Commonwealth? Fine, go ahead, do that. But manipulating politicians, and I hate to talk politics, but a guy who's got his head up his ass as much as DeSantis does down in Florida, okay, I think this is a nightmare of a thing. I mean, I got to get your take on this, because I know you're pro wrestling.
I am pro wrestling, definitely, a big fan of it. But I'm sort of in agreement with you. I think it's, I feel like it's almost unfortunate. Now, I understand completely that they're like, everybody's being tested, it's closed off to the public. Everybody who is, participating is deemed healthy. But, to me, it's also sort of putting people in an uncomfortable situation. Like, they've come out and said, like, if there are wrestlers who aren't comfortable, given the circumstances, like they aren't being forced to, take part in this, they can give them time off. Some wrestlers have taken that time off, but I also feel like it's, knowing Vince, the rumors you've heard, and sort of the nature of that business, it's also probably forcing people who may not be comfortable into situations where they feel like they have no choice but to work, because now it's deemed essential. And he's probably like, hey, they're saying we're okay to work. There's no reason to not come in here if you're healthy, and that's just putting other people at risk. It's definitely not an essential business. It's an entertainment. Other TV shows have talked about how they've had to go on hiatus. They stopped producing movies for the same, sake of it all. All these other companies can do the same thing, like spot test everybody, make sure they're healthy, and then have them come back to work. And I think eventually, like, as a country, that's the way it's going to slowly come back. But I don't think the WWE has to be the one leading that forefront. I think Vince is, worried about losing his millions, because they've had to close off tapings, and, they actually gave WrestleMania away for free on the WWE network. They didn't charge anybody the $10 a month to watch it. You saw them file bankruptcy for the XFL. So, maybe he was just losing some money. And like you said, some campaign contributions went down to deem it an essential business. But in no way is, a wrestling program, a sports entertainment program, should be considered essential. So while I am a fan, I don't think we necessarily needed to see it come back so soon.
Yeah, I mean, the manipulation of the whole thing to me is just, it's disgusting. It really is. Because, well, no, you could get a free month of the WWE network if you signed up for it so that you could sit and watch it. Well, that month ends, and wrestling is going to continue now, even though it shouldn't. And how many people are going to subscribe for that $10 a month in order to get that, and really where are those numbers going to be. So, I tell you, we should just get Fensty in on this one here, and then just beat the snot out of him too, because it's.
I am curious to see what his take is on it. I mean, for me, seeing it deemed an essential business, it was just a surprise, because they had shut down the Performance Center for that reason. They recently actually had a staffer test positive for COVID-19, and they had to send a newsletter out being like, the interaction was minimal. He wasn't a wrestler. He was somebody on like their lighting crew or something like that. But still, like, there was somebody in the Performance Center that was eventually, got sick. And who's to say you test somebody on a Monday, they're fine, they come Thursday, they don't contract it, and now who knows, or maybe they're asymptomatic. And it just, like you said, it's a hassle. There's a reason why everybody's advising you to stay inside and wait till this kind of blows over. And I don't think this is one of the first things that should have been coming back. That's for sure.
That's for sure. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us here today on Fantasy Alarm Sports Talk. We're going to be doing a lot of these along with 5-on-5. We're going to bring back 3-point play as well. I like the one-on-one debates that we were throwing down there. So there's plenty of stuff, guys. Do me a favor. Go to fantasyalarm.com on Facebook and like the page. Go to YouTube and go to Fantasy Alarm in the search bar there, and make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you have full easy access to any and all of these videos. Obviously at Fantasy Alarm on Twitter is what you want to do, and then obviously on our homepage you can check out our video page. It's getting prettier and prettier as the days go on. Why? Because that's the content that we're putting out, baby. That's going to do it for us here today. Big thanks to our producer, Matt Sells. John, thanks so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. I'll meet you in a poker tournament somewhere online.
Let's hope.
Let's do it. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Howard Bender, and we'll catch you next time.